Alright guys, so we're back and now we're going to start hanging the pistons on the rods. It'll look something like this when we're done, hopefully. Two major things you got to watch for. Valve relief position. Small ones for the exhaust valve, large ones for the intake valve. If you don't know where they go, easiest way is to look at your cylinder head. Most all small block Chevy cylinder heads, except for the race stuff, is exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust, exhaust, intake, intake, exhaust. So, starting, 1357, we're gonna look down. Second thing, roll this over quick and grab one of these. Crankshaft. It's got a fillet on each side of the crankshaft. A nice big radius here. You'll notice connecting rods have a chamfer right here. I don't know if I can get that in the camera. Big chamfer on this side. There's no chamfer on this side. Well, a little bit, but little chamfer, big chamfer. The chamfer rides in this corner here, or it doesn't ride, it does not touch, is the goal. So your connecting rods will sit on here something like this. Big chamfer to the outside, and then another connecting rod, the flat, it'll be two flats up against each other, and then this rod will go like that, something like that. So we're gonna start throwing them together here. Set this one back down. You'll notice I got them all laid out. All the manly print up on this side, so it's all the chamfers are facing up towards me. This side, all the chamfers are facing down, no manly print. And I did the same thing with all the pistons. I always go through and I mark these, the arrow pointing forward to the front of the block, and all the pistons are numbered. Just makes it easier, takes some of the guesswork out of it. You don't have to keep looking around at what you're doing. So, let's see if I can get the camera positioned right for you guys here. This particular set of pistons use circlips. And in order to get the circlip in, it's really kind of a pain. Oop, you don't do that. Anyways, what you want to do is start the tail of the circlip in that little relief. And what this relief is here for is for ease of starting it, for one, and then if you ever have to take them apart, you have a spot to stick your pick in and pick this circlip out and snake it back out. You'll kind of see here. I always start one side of the piston at a time. Just you grab a piston, set her down, grab your circlip, and go from here. So I'll set this down real quick. Start the tail of it in the little groove. Get her down in there. If you got crazy strong fingers, you can just push them in. My hands are all beat up, so I'm not doing that. So you set them in there, squeeze them in. Everyone has a kind of a tool of choice for this. I just use a good old dull flathead screwdriver to help me. And of course, this is going to be... Alright, boom, boom, boom. Got the tail started. Kind of get it in the groove as much as you can. Get it started. Here, push down in there. Then just very gently use your screwdriver to help push it in, and you hear it pop. So now it popped into place. There's a groove in the piston where that circlip rides. So once you get that thing fed in there, I always take my finger, dunk it in my grease, lube up the piston, both sides. Take my wrist pin, do the same thing. Just get some lube on there. The lube I use for this is different than the bearing lube I use. For the pistons and the wrist pins, I use some Joe Gibbs assembly grease. Good thick stuff, high pressure lube. It's really good. So then, grab our piston. This is where you gotta pay attention to your valve relief location on the piston and the chamfer on the rod. You wanna make sure you get that in the right spot. So, the side that's already got the circlip in it, it's gonna go down I'm gonna stick my rod in here. Oh, I'll put a little bit of lube on the rod too, so nothing goes together dry. Start your wrist pin, get it through the rod to the other side of the wrist pin. Give her a little wiggle the whole way through, get everything nice and coated with the lubricant. Set her down. Verify, this is where you want to check now that you're doing it right. You know, chamfer this way to the front of the block. My arrows, my valve reliefs, and everything are good. So, I'm gonna take another circlip. Start one of the tails in the relief. Squeeze it on in there. Use your little screwdriver to help you get her started. These things are always a pain in the butt. You can play around with which side you start first. It does not matter, as long as you want one of these in that hole. Doesn't matter which side you start with. And it's always tougher on these pistons that have the ringland raised, or the pin height raised in the piston. It's always tougher on these ones to get it up in there. I'm gonna try it like this. You don't want to bend them, you don't want to tweak them, you don't want to get these things out of shape. You just slow but steady. You know, by now you got grease all over your fingers and it makes it pretty tough, so just kind of walk it around, get her started. This one's being a real pain in the butt. This is where I stab myself. Almost. Boy. Oh, it was in there. Sorry guys, normally this goes a lot smoother than this, but apparently I'm having trouble since I'm on camera, of course. Alright, anyways, you guys get the point. I'll be back. I'm probably going to do a time lapse of me throwing all these together. And then I'll get, so yeah, I'll do a time lapse of it. I'll get all the rods hung on the pistons, and then I'm going to come back and do the rings. We'll go through and wrap all the rings on the pistons and show you all about that. So, I'll be back in a second.
Close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go through the wasteland.
All right, so we're back. We got them all done. After about a half an hour and a bunch of really sore thumbs and fingers, we got all the rods and pistons hung. So now I'm gonna take myself a break, but then we're gonna go through and start ringing up all the pistons. All right, we'll be back at the video on that shortly.
Barton, Bill at High Tech Motorsport. We're working on that 383 Chevy motor. Bill's been working all night. No, he hasn't. He just got here a couple hours ago. And we wanted to show you with all the pistons assembled on the rods and what he's been doing here to do some final assembly on the short block. Short block is the block with pistons, rods, rings, camshaft, timing chain set, etc., but not the cylinder heads. That's the long block. All right, so here we go. What do you got, Bill?
Well, we're ready to ring up all the pistons now, and I wanted to run through and show how that goes. So I'm gonna lay the diagram out again.
Remember, everybody, clean, clean, clean. If you don't have a nice clean cart or something like that, you've got to make sure all this stuff stays clean, clean, clean. We're not going to put dirty crap together. That's the way, we're not going to do it that way.
All right, so you start with the support rail on the pistons that require it. Just kind of spiral on.
See, it gently spirals on. You don't want to just try to push it open, otherwise it breaks.
The expander, or the the support rails go on really tight, so you just kind of slowly walk it around. And once you get to the edge, kind of grab onto it so it doesn't scratch too bad as it's going down. And you pull it all the way down and it'll locate in a little groove here on the piston. And you'll kind of hear it pop in, just like that.
All right, the support ring is there because on these short pistons with a 6.0 rod and a 383 with a 3.750 stroke, it's actually, you can see it's down right there with the piston pin where it slides in.
Yep, there's no support for it here in the pin, so we got to add a support to that.
If you use the 5.7 rod, you won't have that problem. We like using the longer rod. It just changes the way the rod goes up and down. You end up with a lighter piston, so it spools up a little quicker. At least I think so. Of course, that's what's important, is what I think. Right, Bill? Right,
sure,
Bill?
whatever you say, Bart.
There we go.
Then you got the expander. These are not, you'll see the ends. There's not really an up or a down. I just keep them whatever way. If I put it like that or like that, I do them all the same way. I usually do them up. Doesn't really matter. And it goes in a specific, so it gives you a range here. The oil expander can go anywhere in between here and here in the piston, you know, the wrist pin center line, so, and the front of the engine facing that way. So expander is going to go on. I kind of don't put it right in the center. I kind of kick it off just a little bit. And the next deal here is the actual rails. So then these are a lot more critical where they go. So you take, and that's what's that, about 120 degrees off, something like that. So I'll start the lower one first. You always work from the bottom up. Spin these on. Make sure you're not catching anything. All right, lower rail. Upper rail, once again on the chart, about 90 degrees off of that, and it's the top one.
And you guys would not believe the number of motors we've taken apart where they're not assembled correctly. It happens a lot.
If all these gaps line up, you're gonna burn oil. Your oil control is not gonna be where it's supposed to be. Top ring's the shiny one, second ring's the dull one. And there's an up and a down, so the printed side is up on this particular ring. And we'll just kind of...
Come on back, you wanna be on YouTube? We're featuring Bill. Usually we're in the bathroom with Bill, but right now we're actually, we're doing rings.
Oh, all right, so that one goes dead center piston. Top ring facing up, 180 degrees off. Spin that on. Being really careful. All right.
These are the ones you cut. Now he's going to do this 7 more times, hopefully.
6 more. I already did one.
Oh, you already did one. 6 more. All right. There's a V8 motor.
6 more times. We'll probably set up a time lapse for that real quick too, just because we can.
Take your time, everybody, and be gentle. Just follow the instructions. They all come with these instructions. Follow them and just make sure it goes right. Hi, Kyle. Say hi.
How's it going?
Okay, there we go. Kyle's tuning a Camaro today that's being fussy. There's the owner of the Camaro back there. He's hiding. He owns Dairy Queens in Wisconsin. Please go there and help him pay for his car. Okay. All right. All right, we'll be back here. Next step, we're going to take and put it in the block, right?
Yep.
We'll slide them in?
Yep, we'll be sliding them in.
All right, we'll be back here in a little bit. Working on the 383 Chevy. Here we go.
Ready to start dropping pistons in. So we got our ring compressor. Come in all different shapes and sizes. This one happens to be
Round.
Round, yeah. It's kind of got I can kind of show them the ones we got here. There's all different shapes and sizes. This is a really common one. These are the devil. Don't avoid these at all costs. If you guys are assembling an engine one time, there is pre-fit ones that are, you know, the exact size that you need for your bore. They can be ordered from ARP, anyone. Everybody makes them. And then we have, like the one I'm using today, has a range on it. This is from 4-inch to 4-inch 120 thousandths. So, I believe I've already put one in, so I think I got it adjusted pretty close to where we're going to need to be. So I'll pull the cap off. I don't know if I touched on this at all yet, but you do not want to cross-pollinate your caps or the bolts in between the rods. They're weight, they're weight match sets, so Each cap has its own rod, and they stay that way.
That's a really big word for a guy that assembles engine, that cross-pollinate thing. It's actually 2 words. That means just don't mix this shit up. There we go.
So I'll put just a little bit of oil on here. You don't want to take these things and dump them in a bucket of oil like you see some guys do. Especially if the engine's going to go together and start. If it's going to start up pretty soon after assembly, you don't got to worry about soaking these things. If it's going to be assembled and then sit around for a while, you can rub some fogging oil on the bores or something to keep them from rusting. But and I just gotta look at my rings again. I verify that the rings are all in the spot that I want them to be, because after being handled, they do move around. So one last double check on the ring position. I think I'm good to go. So then I grab an upper bearing. That's an upper. Kind of start the little tang first. They go tang the tang. Just kind of gently slide it in there. Make sure it's nice and flush. And then we'll give it a little bit of assembly lube.
That's ARP stuff, is that?
No, this is a red line. This is a
Redline.
Synthetic
Okay.
assembly lube. It's really good. It's really thin.
And this is just designed for initial startup and when you're assembling to make sure everything still slides.
Yep.
Remember, anything you put oil on or assembly lube, if you don't put it in right away, it's going to attract dust. So you're going to get a lot of dust going on with this thing. So don't just run the vacuum right after you get done with this. Bad plan. So,
right.
got it lined up.
I want to move that ring just a little bit. All right. So then we can set her in here, get her started. See the skirt starting to come through. Double check, make sure your rod, you got the chamfer on the rod that matches the crankshaft, and your pistons in the right direction. So you don't want to take it apart from here, so double check everything one last time. Then they should kind of just push in fairly easy. You kind of got to rock them side to side, front to back.
They get stuck like that.
And they get stuck like that.
So it slides into the bore. This is a 4030 bore.
Yep. All right, so that one's not too happy. So I'm gonna pull it back out a little bit. Pull my ring compressor back off of here. Loosen it up a bit. Hopefully I get this thing to come out of here. All right. So I just loosened it up quite a bit. I'm just gonna go about another quarter turn on this to get kind of back to where I was, but not quite as far.
Remember, kids, you can try this at home. Bill's a trained professional, and even he screws up once in a while. It takes a little bit of time.
So what you're trying to do, you're trying to avoid these rings are really thin and really fragile as far as getting caught on the top of the deck surface when it's going in. These oil ring support rails are really thin, and if that piston goes in and catches the deck surface, it's gonna kind of basically rip that out and twist it and break it, and then you need a new set of rings. So kind of tighten that up a little bit here. You kind of got to find a balance in between being too tight on your spring compressor, or your ring compressor, excuse me, and too loose to sneak in here. So
Hey, what's up? Tomorrow. Can't help you. Kidding with you. Just figure it out and call me back. You're the guy that's holding up the parade. I will find a spot. All right? Okay. All right, thanks, mate. All right. We really hope that Bill's love life is better than this.
yeah. For some reason, the first one went a lot smoother, so.
It's because you're on TV.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I blame Bill for this. You know that, everybody on YouTube, so don't get too excited about it.
Oh, yeah.
This just takes a little time, and it's got to be a little finesse, and that one doesn't work for shit. Defective stuff.
Yeah, assembly error.
Green side up. Oh, it's this side over here.
Yep, you can see the little
Yep.
Spring popped out there, so it needs to be a little bit tighter.
Now, most people would use like a 5/16 nut driver, but not Bill. He wants to use his really, really big screwdriver.
Whatever's handy.
And this is why it takes somewhere between 75 and 80 hours to assemble an engine in high-tech motorsport. Because each piston takes about 4 hours to get in the bore.
Jeez.
This is going to be fun.
This might get edited out a little bit here.
It very well could. Maybe there'll be a. Oh, here we go. Look at this. It's green.
So if it doesn't want to go in, you can kind of give it a little love tap and see where you're at.
There it goes.
Okay.
Here you go.
Just real gently, if you ever use your rubber mallet, be real gentle with it. Don't force anything. If it doesn't want to go, you got to figure out why. So then, if you want to come around here.
No, not really. All right, here we go.
You got the rod coming through, and you got to mate the rod up at the crank, so we're going to come down pretty slow here. Maybe.
Really slow. I'm going to go back to the hammer thing again.
Just so I don't cut myself again.
The high-tech motorsport plastic hammer. Remember, you got to have the bearing in place when you do this, the top half.
Yep, bearing half's in there. So then you kind of just go down until it finds its home.
There you go. So, that's two. It took about 20 minutes to do that one. So, once again, Bill will be getting a cut in his pay again. Performance basis here at High Tech Motorsport. Don't get the crap done. You get a chance to come in on the weekend. Or, in his case, a weekday. Kidding about that. Every day is a weekend here at High Tech Motorsport.
So you take the cap, the lower bearing half, get your bolts.
Remember, these bearings are all matched, so you just got to make sure you got the right ones once you stick them into place.
Set your cap up in here. And I always start these by hand.
Yeah, you don't want to force those.
And I got my bit driver, lowest possible torque setting. You're just going to go a little bit at a time. Make sure you pull that cap in perfectly flat. You don't want to yank up one side before the other. It'll wreck the dowel pin on the cap. And that's it.
There you go. 6 more to go. We'll be back in sometime in November. We'll go.
Yeah, so I'm going to take it and I spin the motor over. Make sure it looks okay, sounds okay, moves freely. You don't want to, this is the point where you're going to see if a ring got hung up going in, it's going to scratch the heck out of everything. And everything spins good.
There you go. 6 more to go. And when you spin it over every time, when you put a piston in, you make sure if you got something that's binding up. So if all of a sudden it binds up when you put one piston in, it was the last one that you did. Same thing when you put the crank in. You want to make sure that every time you put in a main bearing, you turn it over and make sure it's staying straight.
We got to show them the stroker clearance thing here now that they're in there.
There you go. Good. So here comes the, see the stroker clearance on both sides.
You'll see as the rod comes around, it's not very close to that side. Well, I guess it does get pretty close, but
No, it's not that close. Here comes the side. It's going to be a problem child with the big.
so you'll see as the rod cap comes around, just squeaks through there, and we got about 100 thousandths room, which is plenty for a stroker clearance.
Now you can do the stroker clearance by feel, and that means you basically start the motor, goes eventual clearance. So I'm kidding about that. Don't do that. Somebody will be online going, that dumbass Bart said to just freaking turn the motor on for stroker clearance. Yeah, I probably shouldn't say that kind of stuff. That may get edited out too, along with 10 minutes of Bill trying to pound down one piston. God help us all. All right, more to come. We'll start putting these videos up as soon as Bart figures out how to do the damn video thing, which is always a lot of fun. I got a new computer working, and since I couldn't use the old computer, I'm not sure what good that's going to do. We're going to give this a try, all right? For Bart and Bill signing off from the clean room of High Tech Motorsport with lots of light. We will be back here shortly with the assembly of the rest of the motor.
Right, so another thing we should probably touch on is when you set up your new oil pump and pickup tube combination, and you're presumably maybe even using a new oil pan on your build, you gotta check your oil pump pickup tube to oil pan clearance. Usually shoot for about 3/8 of an inch gap between the bottom of the pickup tube and then, you know, the bottom of the pan. So in order to check that, modeling clay, I'm just using Play-Doh, good old-fashioned Play-Doh. Then we'll take, awkwardly with one hand, sorry about that, I'll set the oil pan down and push on it real good. Yank the pan back off. Oh gosh. All right. So now we got the pan off and our modeling clay here. We can check our clearances. So cut that in half, get a better look at it. So without the gasket in there, this is our oil pan to pickup tube clearance. Let's see if I can find the micrometer. That's about 280 thou plus about 100 thousandths for the pan gasket in there. So that'll be just about actually right at 3/8 of an inch. So she'll be good. You don't got to worry about starving it for oil. And yeah. Oh, and also tack weld on your pickup tube onto the pump so it doesn't fall off.